Okay, I finally got the Mini out of the garage. I pulled it out with my ATV, how I normally do, and I dragged it all the way to into the street and turned it around out in the street and just pushed it back in with the ATV and a bunch of buoys. So yeah, I mean, any marks that it could have made will buff out, so it's the easiest way to do things alone. Before I push this thing back into the garage, I'm going to finally clean up a bit in here because I've got an entire winter's worth of mess. And I need some more space to be able to actually work on the front end and, you know, fabricate actual turbo hot side, cold side stuff. And I'd like to not be tripping on things like I have been this whole time. So I need to get these trailing arms and brakes and everything out of here. Engines, I've got nowhere to put them for now, so I'm gonna try to throw them in a corner somewhere. Jet ski, I don't know. That thing's a pain to get out of here right now. And my trailer is full, so I don't know. I'll clean up and do what I can because honestly, it sucks working like this. Alright guys, we're finally at the point of front end fabrication again, so I figured I'll give you a rundown of what I've already done and what I'm going to do next. So I'll do a little slideshow with photos that I took before also. I didn't video this part when I made these motor mounts, but I got this universal set of K-series motor mounts with the actual polyurethane and everything. So those just bolt onto the block. I made these brackets that I then welded these, you know, cut off bits of the universal kit to. It goes to the strut tower and everything back there. And this side was a little more challenging. I had to make this whole tower for the trans mount over on this side. But again, universal polyurethane mount. I made, this is hard with all this stuff in the way still. And then I made the chassis mount on this side too. Got it all welded up. So now the upper motor mounts are done. I still have to make the lower rear one, but I still have the steel pan on this that came with the motor. I bought a S series or SI series aluminum pan that has the bungs for a lower torque mount with that bolts to the pan itself because there's nowhere else to do it, and on this thing it lines up perfectly with the factory mount. So that's what I'm going to do on that one, but that'll be once I put this thing back in for good. This motor's still going to come out because I want to build it. I want to do forged rods and pistons just so that I don't have to worry about it and I'll refresh it and everything. So yeah, there's that. I did buy a remote or a billet water neck replacement that has the remote filler location on the top too. I don't have that over here yet. It's over at the, you know, in my pile of parts that are waiting for this thing. And I also got, I don't remember if this was K-tuned or what, but this billet, it gets rid of the factory tensioner, I believe. And then this thing bolts right onto the side there, and then this motor mount replaces, or this motor mount goes right onto this thing. Give me a little more adjustability, and it'll be easier to figure out my accessories because I'm still gonna try to put an AC compressor on this thing because I would like for this thing to have AC. So that's what I've done so far. I now I want to bolt my factory PCM. I still need it for certain functions of the car, like the electric power steering and AC control and windows and all that stuff. And fuse box. So I want to bolt those into place now because let me just shove that out of the way so I can give you a better idea. And throw it down there. Because now I have this cheaper Sidewinder manifold that's actually, you know, pretty dang thick metal. that I'm going to chop up to use on this thing. I didn't want to buy a nice, $500+ name brand one because, again, I knew I was going to have to chop it anyways, so I really just wanted flange and up to this point. So this thing is going to go, see if I can do it with one hand. Alright, so this thing is going to go on there-ish. Really goes like that, but I'm going to trim some of this plastic. There's actually nothing behind this, so I'll get myself a little bit of clearance, and I might even send this out to get ceramic coated. I don't feel like wrapping it. I'm not that big of a fan of header wrap anymore, so I'd like to at least get it ceramic coated. But as you can see, I have my ABS module that I do not want to relocate with all these lines going into it. And if I were to mount a turbo right here, the outlet would be directly this direction. No space around clutch lines, ABS module, all that. So that sucks. And I knew that from the start because of Scott Clayton on one of the swapped Mini Cooper pages is going through the same thing that I'm doing right now. And he mocked one up already, and it does not fit for like good at all. But I like to try to weld when I can. So I'm gonna actually modify mine. I have my turbo here. These are one of the turbos off my Corvette. When I do that thing again, I'm going to upgrade. And these things are still good. These are GT35s with, I believe, a 0.65 AR. 6.9 on the back housing. And I mean, this thing's a few years old already. I've spit fire out of it. It's taken my car to 1/360 foots without even really trying. I ran these in a twin setup. I have another one still. So I'm gonna run it, since they're still good, I'm gonna run them on this thing. Well, not them, but I'm gonna run one on this thing. And if this thing ever blows up, then I will run the other one. And eventually, if these things, these are Chinese turbos, by the way. These are like 5-year-old Chinese turbos at this point. But they're good. I like them. And they should spool fast. Difference is, this thing's a T4 housing. That flange is a T3. But again, I knew that going into this, that I'm going to cut that off. So, I want my turbo somewhere about here or so. So I'm going to cut and weld with, I have some pie cuts here that I'm going to take this bend this direction, and then another part off my Corvette. Got one of these cast stainless elbows that I used way back when, which is still in good condition. It's just back when I didn't TIG or anything before, so I stuck this thing together with a flux core, so I've got to clean this thing up. But it's still good. It's a T4 elbow, cast stainless. I want it right about there. And that should put my wastegate flange that I already have on this thing in a great location. Well, wastegate will be dumping down, or the wastegate will be down here. But it'll be directly in the flow of exhaust, so it should work great. The wastegate should work great. Placement wise, we'll see. But I would like to put this thing somewhere around here. You know, I could move it around. I mean, I could even flip it upside down and mount the turbo hanging off of it. But that's the plan. And that is actually the flange that that turbo was bolted to at in its past life. So, you know, reuniting it right there. So that's what I'm going to work on now. I'm going to clean this thing up some more. You can tell it's wet because I just took it out of the parts washer to continue this, to make this video. I have to throw it back in there to get all this carbon out of it and clean up all this metal up here for my crappy weld so I could go over it with the TIG. Maybe grind a little bit. Really should grind a little bit, but we'll see. It'd be nice to just go over it with the TIG and make it nice. So, time for the fun part. I enjoy doing this stuff more than working on my back underneath the back of the car. So, this should go faster. I just like to say, instead of an underhood light, these Milwaukee Rover floodlights are amazing. So, I need to get the T4 cast elbow down here upside down with the flange facing upwards. Which means I need this to turn hard 90 down and then snake this way. So it'll be kind of a double 90. So, I need to grab my micrometer, or my micrometer, dial caliper. I forget which one's what each tool of measurement is called. So, I need that down there. I need to start making a tight pie cut down this way. Tight pie cut bend. So, I need to make sure I get one in an area that's around 3 inches in diameter. And I don't want to reuse this wastegate placement on this manifold. So, I'm going to cut this right along there, just to start my weird snake down looking manifold. Okay, here's the mark I made. This is actually going to be closer. I mean, I don't have any option really to make it smaller. Even if I were to angle away from there, it just makes it bigger. So, that's where I'm going to cut. It's going to end up closer to a 4-inch section. So I will have to grab a stainless 4-inch piece, or maybe even a reducer, and bring it down to 3. We'll see once I get that cut how everything fits. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Chop that right there, and that'll give me my nice beginning for transition down. Right. It didn't actually fit in my bandsaw, so I just threw it in my chop saw, which made it nice and, well, made it straight, but ugly. So, got to go with my angle grinder now, flat disc, clean all this up. And as you can tell, I chopped it right through the center of this V-band outlet. It's pretty funny. There's barely anything actually left on the pipe there, so I'm going to knock that off, clean it up. And it gives me a good opportunity to actually clean up these inner, pointy transition bits, make it a little stronger in there. There's the inside of a $200 Sidewinder manifold. It's actually made of pretty thick pipe. I'm actually impressed. Usually these are, that thickness is impressive. It's more so schedule pipe than it is that. I don't know if any of you have had experience with Chinese headers, like long tube headers for other cars. But they use some really thin, like basically sheet metal. So this is at least 3 times the thickness of that stuff. I actually have some somewhere laying around this garage that, let me see if I could find some and show you a comparison. Alright, I found one. I couldn't find one that's already cut up, but this is one that I had on my Ram for a while, but I just got tired of. These things are so thin, you just hear all the valve tray noise, and it sounds like constant exhaust ticking, even though they're not ticking. And my Ram is lifted too, so your ears are right at header level, so you just hear constant ticking. And I honestly didn't need it on that thing, so I took them off. I keep these things around because I cut them up, and then I use these primaries, which are like 1 3/4 or so, and I use these for wastegate flanges and the dump from the wastegate, because you got all these nice bends and everything. It's still stainless, even though this thing is discolored, but this thing was on my car for like 2 winters, and it has not rusted through. It's just discolored stainless. But I use these to have my bends for like wastegate dumps that I want to recirculate into the exhaust. So I have all sorts of bends that I could route anywhere I wanted, where I could route them anywhere I want it to go. So yeah, if you, even just by listening to it, I mean, this is just chintzy pipe. The thickness is obvious. Even looking at the collector on the end, look at how thin that actual collector metal is. And then look at the thickness of this one. So I'm actually impressed with this piece for what I'm doing with it. I mean, it's plenty strong, and this little manifold weighs as much as that entire header. So that tells you something. I think this will work out great for what I'm doing. I'm also going to brace the turbo. I'm going to brace it off of the trans or engine block somewhere. So it's not like this manifold is going to be supporting the weight of the turbo. Time to clean this up, get it back on the car, and then I could start mocking up my bends. If I could actually show you, it's one of the pie cuts. It is not quite 3" there, but it is so close I might actually be able to make that work without using a transition piece. So yeah, let me get back to work on that. Sorry I can't film all of this. I don't have enough memory card space, and this is more time consuming than these videos make it look. So time to get back to that. Alright, got the manifold chopped, cleaned up. So now I'm going to start with making a pie cut bend. I am going to start with lining a few up, just like that. Probably start with 3 right away. And get it pointing downwards. So, yeah, I'm going to take my marker, mark those in position, and tack them together. Alright, got that thing tacked. So, a little warm still. This is what I am starting with. Yep, that will work. Like something like that. Alright, I got this thing welded up. It's still obviously hot, so can't do much with it at the moment. I'm not a pro welder or anything. I'm more so trying to get better at doing all this thin stainless. I know I definitely have way too thick a filler rod and tungsten. I've been welding all this with 330 seconds, which is much thicker than the metal I am welding, so it makes it hard to manage heat. But it'll do. It's stuck together. Alright guys, it's the next day again. This time I ran and picked up a 3.5 to 3" reducer because this will make my life a lot easier over here, so that I can weld this onto my collector and then weld the edges and just pinch in the sides to weld up to make it a nice transition. I tried opening up one of my 3" pie cut sections to fit, but it just started looking really ugly, so I gave up on that idea. I'd rather get a reducer and chop it off pretty much right up to the transition and use it that way. And then here is my whole turbo and wastegate deal, which will sit right up in here. Nice big open space. Hopefully keep everything far enough away from shifter linkage, radiator hose. I might just get a orb, I think it's just 12, an orb 1290 here to go right to the radiator instead of having it stick out that way. It's not in the way now, but it'll probably be easier. Let's put that back in. So yeah, I'm going to now take this and chop off all this excess that I have up here on the 3.5" side. I'm also going to have to chop the 3" side, but I'm going to do this side first to get the collector part done. So stay tuned. Alright, I have both sides of this reducer nabbed off right away. And I did it on slash cuts on both sides so that it helps me with my turn down that I'm trying to do. So now, the idea is, take this guy, that's going to go on there, and then this that I already made, something like that, and then the other part that's on the turbo will just go transition in. So let's see if that all works out nicely. I'm probably going to have to trim something still since I made all the other pieces before I had the reducer. So I guess first, because I can't really modify the transition anymore, I'm going to take the manifold back off and tack that on and get the manifold and transition done. And then I could work on getting the rest of it to fit. I need something to support the turbo up so I could get it right where I want it, because I obviously don't want it touching anything down here. So there we go. That's what's happening there. Alright, I set the camera up. So I got the reducer tacked onto the manifold on all four corners, all four primaries. I'm not going to smash these in and weld it up yet, because if I do that, it's probably going to close up this 3" in diameter and take it out of round. So I decided I need to get this thing all in place first. So I want to get this welded on, but I need to figure out where it goes. I think it goes about there. I already made a mark, but again, I have no good way to balance this thing to get an idea of where I want it. Well, I know where I want it. It's going to be right about here. It's nothing's touching, gives me plenty of space. So the difficult part is I'm alone, and this thing's heavy. So I'm going for something like that. Then I could see I need one more pie cut in there to make that work. But right about there is where probably right about there is where I want that to be. So, drop this, wipe off my previous mark. I know that was right about there. Alright. So I want to line up with that. So now I could go and get that thing welded on and work from there. Alright, so I have the reducer welded on, rest of the pipe welded on. Now I'm going to start by, I'll probably heat these bits, heat these parts and then slightly tap them in, try to keep it looking nice. I have a bodywork hammer I might try to use that has it's like a flat spot, so I could try to flatten this into a V shape. Go little by little, tack it on. We'll see how that works. Okay, so to get my shape for the primary here, or for the collector between the primaries, I got an impact socket on an extension. I held it there and I hammered it. So let me go get this welded up Might even throw a little, just throw a bead right down here, just to clean up those hammer marks. Make it look like, you know, it was meant to be that way. We'll see. I'll get this side welded up first, then I'll do the other side. Yada yada. Alright, so I finished welding up this manifold. I got the collector pretty much all finished. Not as pretty as I would have wanted around these merges, but I mean, what can you do with a hammer? When it all gets wire wheeled and cleaned up, it'll look a lot better. Still don't know whether I'm going to wrap this thing or have it ceramic coated, but I'd like to try to keep the heat out of the exhaust. Not out of the exhaust. I want the heat in the exhaust. I want to keep the heat out of the engine. So, there's that bit. Now I just need to let this cool down a little bit and throw it back onto the engine and get the rest of it done. Alright, a few hours of welding and cutting later, and I now have a turbo in the Mini on the K series. So, everything fits back there. Still have space to route my exhaust, just barely on this side. I really should have turned this upwards like I originally planned and flipped the elbow over and hung the turbo on the back on the underside. But that would put the turbo really low, and I wanted it high, so personal preference, I like the look. So I kind of put myself in that situation. So now the idea is, this could, I still have to move that around, but I think I want to take the wastegate dump and recirculate it. So I might be going up and into the downpipe. I will see when I make the downpipe. So, downpipe, oh man, I don't have the light here anymore. Downpipe is going to go down here and snake right through there. Going to be a tight fit. I'm hoping, I'm going to take the manifold off again. I want to see if I can move the ABS module at all. Give myself like another inch. Just because I don't want to be heating up brake fluid if I don't have to. And I can't go any lower down here. Well, I mean, I guess I could, but it'll be very close to my shift cables, which I also don't want to heat up. So, that'll be fun. We'll see how that goes. But I am happy with the actual turbo placement there. And then, obviously, I still have everything loose, so when I get the radiator and intercooler and everything, I could see where my intercooler pipes and stuff are going to go. So yeah, that's fun. Looks great. I'm happy with that, but I'm done for the night.